What happens when the man who plays by the rules, respects his opponents, and embodies sportsmanship becomes the most hated figure in the fight game? This is the story of Daniel Cormier, a champion in every sense of the word, yet a man whose reputation has been overshadowed by the hate he never deserved. The unlikely hero. Daniel Cormier's journey began in Lafayette, Louisiana, a place far removed from the glamour of professional sports. His life was marked by early hardships, the most devastating of which came when he was just 7 years old. His father was tragically murdered on Thanksgiving Day, an event that would leave an indelible scar on his childhood. Wrestling became more than just a sport for Cormier. It was an escape, a way to channel his pain and find purpose. He poured himself into the discipline, excelling first at the high school level, where he won 3 state championships, and later at Oklahoma State University, where he became an NCAA Division I All-American. Cormier's relentless work ethic carried him to the world stage, where he represented the United States in freestyle wrestling at the 2004 and 2008 Olympics. Although he fell short of winning a medal, his grit and determination earned him respect as one of the most talented wrestlers of his era. Yet life continued to challenge him. In 2003, he lost his 3-month-old daughter in a car accident, a tragedy that tested his resolve like never before. Despite this heartbreak, Cormier persevered, channeling his grief into his career. When he transitioned to MMA, he carried the same discipline, resilience, and humility that had defined his wrestling career. His rise was nothing short of meteoric, but the same traits that made him a role model also made him a target in a sport that often celebrates controversy over character. Rise through the ranks. Cormier's entry into MMA was a revelation. Starting in Strikeforce, he quickly became a dominant force in the heavyweight division. His wrestling pedigree, combined with his ability to adapt to striking, made him a nightmare for opponents. He stormed through the Strikeforce heavyweight Grand Prix, defeating seasoned veterans like Antonio Bigfoot Silva and Josh Barnett to claim the championship. Undefeated and with a growing reputation as a disciplined and technically skilled fighter, Cormier entered the UFC with high expectations. The transition to the UFC brought new challenges. Cormier chose to move down to light heavyweight to avoid clashing with his teammate and friend, Cain Velasquez, the reigning UFC heavyweight champion. This decision showcased his selflessness, but also placed him in one of the most competitive divisions in the organization. Despite his impressive performances, including victories over top contenders like Dan Henderson and Alexander Gustafsson, Cormier struggled to connect with fans. His clean-cut persona and respectful demeanor were often interpreted as insincere in a sport that thrives on larger-than-life personalities. Fans began to view him as the company man, a fighter who played it safe and avoided drama. This perception would only intensify with the arrival of his greatest rival, the rivalry that defined him. No rivalry in MMA history has been as intense or as personal as the one between Daniel Cormier and Jon Jones. From the moment they first faced off, it was clear that this was more than just a professional competition. Jones, with his brash personality and unparalleled talent, was everything Cormier was not. Their verbal clashes became legendary, with Jones often mocking Cormier's nice guy image, calling him fake and unworthy of respect. The animosity between them culminated in a now infamous press conference brawl, which only added fuel to the fire. Their first fight at UFC 182 was a pivotal moment in Cormier's career. Despite a valiant effort, he suffered his first professional loss, and Jones retained the light heavyweight title. The defeat was devastating, not just because of the outcome, but because of the narrative it reinforced. To fans, Cormier was the nice guy who couldn't match the brilliance of the sport's most polarizing star. When Jones was stripped of the title due to legal troubles, Cormier seized the opportunity to claim the vacant belt. But even as he defended the championship, critics labeled him a paper champion, suggesting that his reign was illegitimate without a victory over Jones. The rivalry reached its peak at UFC 214, where the two faced off once more. Cormier appeared stronger and more prepared than ever, but a devastating head kick from Jones ended the fight. However, the result was overturned when Jones failed a drug test, reigniting debates over who was the true champion. Through it all, Cormier remained composed, handling the criticism and controversy with the grace and dignity that had defined his career. A champion of champions. Despite the criticism, Cormier's accomplishments spoke for themselves. He defended the light heavyweight belt multiple times before making the bold decision to return to heavyweight. Facing Stipe Miocic, arguably the greatest heavyweight in UFC history, Cormier shocked the world by knocking him out in the first round to become a two-division champion. This victory should have been his crowning moment, but even then, detractors found ways to discredit him. To some, he was still the company man, a placeholder until someone more exciting came along. The struggle with public perception. Cormier's struggle with fan perception was one of the most perplexing aspects of his career. Despite being a model of sportsmanship and a consistent performer, he couldn't escape the chorus of boos that greeted him in arenas across the world. For many fans, Cormier lacked the raw charisma and unfiltered persona they associated with greatness in MMA. His emotional transparency, whether in the aftermath of a loss or during heated press conferences, was often misconstrued as weakness. He was criticized for being too polished, too corporate, a fighter who embodied professionalism rather than the raw grit fans craved. The rivalry with Jon Jones amplified these perceptions. While Jones repeatedly found himself embroiled in scandals, many fans still sided with him over the disciplined, nice guy Cormier. It was as if Cormier's adherence to the rules and his dedication to being a role model worked against him. Fans relished his moments of vulnerability, such as the tears he shed after losing to Jones. Rather than sympathize, critics branded him as soft, a stark contrast to the unforgiving nature of the sport. Yet, through all the jeers and unfair judgments, Cormier never wavered. He continued to show up, not just as a fighter, but as a representative of what MMA could aspire to be, a blend of athleticism, respect, and integrity. Redemption and legacy. As the years passed and Cormier's career began to wind down, the narrative around him started to shift. The boos that once followed him began to fade, replaced by a growing appreciation for the magnitude of his achievements. Fans and analysts alike started to see Cormier for what he truly was, not just a fighter, but an ambassador for the sport. His career was marked by consistency, professionalism, and a dedication to excellence both inside and outside the cage. Cormier's transition into commentary and coaching further solidified his legacy. His insightful analysis and genuine love for the sport endeared him to fans who had once doubted him. As a mentor, he guided young fighters, instilling in them the values that had defined his own career. His rivalry with Jon Jones, once the source of so much animosity, began to take on a different tone. It became less about the wins and losses and more about the contrast between two men, one striving for redemption, the other grappling with controversy. In the end, it was Cormier's consistency and integrity that stood out. He had shown that being a good person in a brutal sport wasn't a weakness, but a strength. The nice guy's triumph. In the twilight of his career, Daniel Cormier's legacy emerged as a testament to resilience and authenticity. From a kid in Louisiana grappling with personal tragedy to a two-division UFC champion, his journey was a masterclass in perseverance. While the boos and criticism may have defined parts of his career, they couldn't overshadow the undeniable greatness of his achievements. Cormier's story proved that the nice guy can finish first, even in a sport that often glorifies chaos over character. Cormier's triumph wasn't just in the titles he won or the fights he endured. It was in his ability to remain true to himself, even when the world seemed determined to break him down. His journey inspired countless fans and fighters, proving that success isn't just about talent or toughness. It's about integrity, humility, and the courage to stay the course. In the end, Daniel Cormier didn't just win fights. He won respect, and that is a legacy no one can take away. In a sport built on conflict, Daniel Cormier stood out not just for his skill, but for his character. His career was a battle not just against opponents, but against perceptions. And though the nice guy might not always win the popularity contest, he proved that staying true to oneself is the ultimate victory.